So, for example, with that previous habit of you pausing before the trigger, okay, the food's there. Do I really need it? No, I'm going to stop. Let's say you don't have that willpower, which a lot of people don't. Do you
Yeah.
buy into the theory of you buy what you eat, so just don't buy it? Or do you think that's too restrictive? That's too black and white?
I think I think as with anything, there's no one size fits all. I think for some people it can be helpful to just not have the trigger foods in the house. If you can, if it's a chocolate or whatever, or candy, whatever it is, if you can't not have it in the house, then don't have it there. But the reality is, if you have family or you live with other people, maybe they want it in the house. So it's going to be around. So you kind of have to learn to live with it. And it's actually kind of doing overall work on self-awareness and mindfulness. When you start doing that, then you can eventually bring that into your your reactions around food as well. So if you bring awareness into how you react to stress going on around you, how you react to somebody shouting at you in traffic or somewhere, if you're able to kind of slow down your response, then eventually you can bring that into your behavior around food as well. So for one person, it might be more helpful to not have the food in the house, but then for other people, that can lead to kind of binge type behavior when they're suddenly faced with that food. So in that case, it could be more helpful to give yourself permission to have that food a little bit every single day so it becomes normal, and it's not something that there's something, it's called last supper mentality, which is when people think, oh my god, this is the only time that I'm ever going to eat this and I'll never eat it again, and they binge on these foods because they never have them around otherwise. So if you have them around all the time, it can just mean they become totally normal, and you can have them. Excuse me, you can have them again tomorrow and the day after and the day after. So
Yeah,
there's there's not one response for everybody.
I like that idea of the Last Supper mentality. That's what I had. So
Mm,
when I was early to being a personal trainer and trying to figure out these calories and macros and eating habits and uh, I say body dysmorphia kind of like like it wasn't crazy, but I was young. I was looking at these juiced up bodybuilders being like,
mm,
I'm gonna look like them and do their 2 hour workouts and their crazy meal plans that are so restrictive. And I was trying to navigate all of this, and I kind of came through at the end becoming a personal trainer, helping people and stuff like that, which was really great. But I also came away with a bit of an eating disorder. I didn't see someone about it. It wasn't official, hey Brock, you've got it. But I was binge eating for years, and I had that Last Supper mentality where I just thought, like I just called it a binge eating disorder, but the way you put it, that's the way that I would look at it. I'll be like, I'm going to have ice cream, but tonight. So tonight, I'm just going to smash it. And then I would
yep.
order things in, or I would walk to the grocery store and get even more things. And I had this conversation with the guy, Jack, that I had on the podcast last week, where I would just eat things that I wasn't really interested in, but that were just there. Like he said, like he would, because he went through a similar thing. Like he would just eat blocks of cheese, and I was like, I did the same thing. It's like I don't even like cheese that much, and I was like eating blocks of cheese. I was eating random crackers. I was eating like a random chocolate sauce stuff and like biscuits, crackers. That wasn't me, but it was just this Last Supper mentality. Like, oh, I'm just gonna do it because tomorrow I'm gonna be perfect.
Yep.
Tomorrow I'm gonna be fine. I'm gonna be so clean tomorrow. It's gonna be
Yeah.
great. But it
It's
never
the
really
same.
worked out like that.
No, and it's the same with people, when they start a diet, let's say they start a diet on Monday, and then on Saturday and Sunday, the day before, they just have all the foods because they think, well, from Monday, I'll never have these again. And yeah, it doesn't work.
So how do you I know this is a really tricky question, but how do you kind of gauge where people are at? Because now I can sit around crazy foods like, there can be McDonald's, KFC, alcohol, whatever around me. And I'm just like, it's not like I'm actively trying to go, oh, that's so bad for me, I can't have it. But like, I'm fine. I don't even need to engage in it. If people say have some, I'm like, no, I'm cool. But back then, I would be all over it. And I would be like, I can't have this around me. I need to go and do something. So I used to have this thing where I would go and read, or I would go practice my guitar, or I would go, um, do something, go play a game, or go go
Yeah.
do something to like engage my brain, because or else I would like have this binge eating kind of disorder, Last Supper mentality. How do you kind of gauge where people are at? What do you use? if you do have
Ah,
something up your sleeve?
so yeah, I think at the start, it's about teaching people about macros and teaching them, where do they get their protein from and all this. And then once you have that knowledge, obviously you don't want to be tracking your foods forever because it becomes a bit of a prison mentality. You're not able to function without it. But then once you're able to let go of that, then I do a lot of work with people around, like I said, self-awareness. And I think that's the message that's often missing when in the fitness or nutrition world online. It's always about, eat protein, eat fiber and all that. At the end of the day, everything comes back to self-awareness and mindfulness. And I know it's not, people don't think it's really cool, or it's, when you talk about meditation, these kind of things, you don't have to be doing this for hours and hours every day. But even if you just have the ability to sit for 5 minutes and just focus on your breath, once you learn this kind of this technique that you can use wherever you are, it doesn't matter. You can then start applying this to other areas of your life. And so there's kind of a 4-step process or framework that I use with people, and it's when you're hungry, or when you think about food, you ask yourself, "Am I hungry?" If the answer is yes, then okay, you go and eat food. And ideally, you've had this knowledge now about, okay, how do I get a meal now that satisfies my protein, fiber, and all that? If the answer is no, then in an ideal world, you wouldn't eat. But the reality is that most people say, oh yeah, but I still want food. That's okay. All right. Is this an intentional choice you're about to make? If the answer is no, then you've probably already eaten the food, so forget about that. If the answer is yes, so you've made an intentional choice. Okay, am I okay with this choice right now and in an hour and in 12 hours? How am I going to feel about this tomorrow morning when I wake up? You know, if I know I'm not going to feel great about it, then don't eat the food. If I'm okay with this choice, even though I'm not hungry, but I still want some food, then the last question you ask yourself is, if I, am I okay with this particular food that I'm about to choose? Or could I have something different? And this, it kind of sounds like a long process, but it only really takes you like 10 seconds to go through these different questions in your head. And this is just the kind of the 10 seconds pause that you need to have between the food trigger and you responding, as in picking the food up and putting it in your mouth. So if at the last step, when you thought you're going to have some chocolate, and then you ask yourself this question, okay, is this particular food, am I okay with this choice of this food? And then you might go, you know what, actually, I know I want something sweet. I might just have some fruit instead. So you're still giving you, it's not about not allowing yourself to eat. You're all the way along this process. You're still giving yourself permission to eat. It's still okay. But you make intentional choices about eating and about what you're going to eat so that in 12 hours, you're still okay with that. You can say, okay, I had some extra food. I wasn't hungry, but I picked the food that I know I like or is good for me. So that's
Yeah,
kind
it,
of,
it, it
that's
it
the
kind of just like
ultimate goal that you want to get to.
it slowly filters out the potential bad decisions that you could make. And I feel
Yeah,
like this
yeah,
framework isn't just for nutrition. I feel like it's for any action that
yeah,
is maybe something that you're hooked on that isn't the best for
yeah,
you. You just
yeah.
think, okay, and you kind of rattle those off.
Yeah, it's like, and like I said, I've actually felt this sometimes where I was thinking about food, and then this kind of, these different questions started in my head, this process, and I thought, oh, I can't be bothered. I'm just not going to have any food because you have to go through this process, and you thought, no, 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 I know what the answer is at the end, so I just walk away. I know I'm not hungry. I know I don't need any food right now. Is there something else that I actually need? Maybe I need a rest. Maybe I need to talk to somebody. Maybe I need to just go and lie down and pet my dog for 5 minutes. So,
It's a bit of a like a bullshit filter. Like if you're
yeah,
bullshitting yourself, if
which
you're
is
like, yeah,
which is what we do most of the time around food. The stories we tell ourselves, like, I'm so stressed, or I deserve this now, and
yeah, 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 yeah. I kind of do that to myself too, where I sometimes if I'm like really hungry, but probably like sometimes I lead to food where I know I have to do something, like for work that maybe is uncomfortable or that's really challenging, or I know it's a big task. I'm like, I need to eat before this. So like,
yeah,
and I know that if I did that, I'm not really hungry. I'm just trying to do something else to kind of
yeah,
put it away, but it's something that I need to do. So in my mind, I'm like, well, I need to eat. I need to be fueled to do this
Yeah.
task, or else I'm going to be so drained. How can I potentially do this task? I'm bullshitting myself a lot. Yeah.
Yeah, but these are called actually cognitive distortions. These are thoughts that we have that are vastly exaggerated or just not true, and they usually tend to be negative. And we use this everywhere in life, but in particular, we use it in terms of food and eating. And it's like that's where the Last Supper mentality comes from, and that's or even people saying like it's called emotional reasoning. Like you said, oh yeah, no, I need to work, or I'm tired, I need food when you're actually not hungry. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
but
It's definitely bullshit.
I think ultimately, if you manage to keep the weight off, it's yes because you're still walking and you're still you're aware of calories and all that, but it's actually because you started the work in that area.
Yeah. And I think one of the underlying things that needs to be said as well is that the knowledge of calories and macronutrients and fiber and how that impacts your body, even meal timing, potentially supplements, having that baseline understanding adds to what we're saying here.
Yeah,
But often it's this or that. People think, oh, like tracking calories and macros, like that's just obsessive. I'm not going to do that. And that's just like, that's bad for my mental health. For some people, it is. But also, people that often talk about eating intuitively or having self awareness or mindfulness have had years or potentially months of tracking their calories. So they do have that. And I feel like as coaches, we do need to put that out there because
yeah.
often I push calories and macros with clients that are new to me and they're like, oh, that's not really for me. But then it's hard to be intuitive when you have literally no awareness of what you're eating. And it comes back to that awareness or mindfulness that you can only really achieve in cooperation with that knowledge.
Yeah, I think I see a difference actually between intuitive eating and intentional eating. And intuitive eating, yes, can be or should be, or ideally is the goal for somebody who's been extremely restrictive with their eating behaviors before. So for them, it is about really allowing themselves to eat any kind of foods without guilt, without punishment, and all that. Whereas eating with intention is, like I said, really being aware of the choices that you're making. And calories have had a really bad rep in the media and in society, but there's no way around. If you want to lose weight, at some point you have to think about calories, and you're probably also stepping on the scales regularly, and if you're keeping the weight off, you are using certain tools for self accountability, like you know you're still weighing yourself, or you're taking measurements, or you're taking photos, and it doesn't have to be excessive. It can just be a way to hold yourself accountable. um, so I think intuitive eating is great, but it is really only for a very small portion of the population, because it can for anybody who's had a more history of overeating, intuitive eating can be really really difficult. And
Yeah.
yeah, just try and eat with intention, knowing, being really aware of the choices that you're making.
Yeah, I think so too. I think that's a great input. And I've never really heard it broken down to intuitive versus intentional eating because when intuitive eating initially started, that's what the kind of two camps were. Like
Mm,
intuitive eating was like, know my body, blah, 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 all that kind of like woo woo stuff. People going like, oh, now that just sounds airy fairy. It's all calories and macros. But I feel like intentional is kind of that in between.
yeah.
And you have that awareness, but you also know the power of calories and macros.